One of the things that we often discuss on the show are the subconscious biases that people have when it comes to race in America. And today we get another great example of the double standard in treatment raising its ugly head. So before I get to this new issue, let me jog your memory on some recent cases. So first, let's talk a little bit about Eric Garner. Eric Garner, of course, was a Staten Island man who was allegedly selling untaxed cigarettes on a street corner. He was in a conversation with some officers. The officers wouldn't leave him alone. He dared to raise his voice a little bit. In no way, shape, or form was he being violent, but he dared to raise his voice a little bit. And what did he get in response to that? Choked out. And he died on the sidewalk. So that's how the police treated a guy who was selling untaxed cigarettes, allegedly. By the way, I still don't know to this day if they've provided any evidence to that effect. Some other people say, who were at the scene, that no, and indeed, what he did is he broke up a fight. So he might have been breaking up a fight, and officers thought, is he involved in the fight? Well, let's question him. And they wouldn't get away from him, and he ended up dying. Now, if you ask me, what should be done here? Worst case scenario is you write him a ticket. Okay, hey, you owe $25 now for selling untaxed cigarettes on the corner. Whoop-de-frickin-do, here you go. And then everybody goes along their merry way. But no, they had to choke out somebody and kill him. Okay, so there's Eric Garner. Now let's go to Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice was 12 years old. He's dead. Police officers pulled up, saw him walking around with a toy gun, shot him dead. Now you might say, well, Kyle, come on, the officers obviously thought it was a real gun, and they obviously thought he was older than 12. And here's the response to that. In the 911 call, the operator said to the officers, it may be a toy gun, because the person who called the cop said, I think it might be a toy gun. So they just threw that out the window and shot him within 2 seconds of showing up. And we found out later that, of course, the police officer had mental issues and nobody took him off the force. Good idea to have people with mental issues carrying guns. A fantastic idea. There was one time when he was training with his buddies. They went to the range. He started crying while he was shooting his gun. And they asked, well, what the fuck's wrong with you? He's talking about his girlfriend and how his girlfriend broke up with him or something. He was crying. He's crying while shooting a firearm. Yeah, that guy's stable, but he had a gun. He killed a 12-year-old. Wonderful. Okay, let's go to the next one here. We have John Crawford. He, of course, was carrying an air gun in Walmart that was for sale in Walmart. Cop showed up, shot him dead immediately. Why? Black guy's got a gun, shoot! That's the thinking that went through his mind. No evidence whatsoever the guy was dangerous. He was just carrying an air gun, and he was killed. Then, of course, here's another issue that pops in my mind. During the whole Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman situation, one of the things that people largely forgot about as time went on was what led to the original anger. And the original anger was based on the fact that Zimmerman was not arrested. But not only that, when officers showed up to the scene, you know what they did? They drug-tested Trayvon Martin, but not George Zimmerman. So you drug-test the dead black kid on the ground, but not the person who's not black who did the killing. So the victim, because he's black, well, you got to test him. The other one, okay, he's cool. So you see the treatment that's going on here. Now, again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying there's some sort of giant, conspiracy by society to purposefully fuck over black people and then laugh about it in a smoke-filled back room. No. What I'm saying is it's part of the culture in that people are raised with subconscious biases, and you also have a natural inclination, everybody does to a certain extent, towards tribalism, where, okay, if they look like me, if they're part of my in-group, they're cool, if they're part of the out-group, they're not. And then, unfortunately, this manifests itself, when the shit hits the fan, it really shows itself, where a lot of assumptions are made that are inaccurate, and then we have to deal with the consequences afterwards. So now you see exactly how, in many recent cases, police reacted when you see black people who weren't dangerous, but they thought maybe they were dangerous, don't want to take any chances, and then this is how it ended up. Okay, so now let's compare that to another recent story we did. This is white bikers in the recent gang shootout in Texas. They don't seem to be viewed as too much of a threat, even though there was just a Wild West-style shootout. They're all sitting around, playing on their phones and whatnot. Now, I understand there's a lot of people there, so, maybe they don't have enough handcuffs or whatever the case is. But either way, they do seem fairly relaxed, and it does seem like, I'm not sure they would act like that if it was the Crips or the Bloods. I'm not sure they would just let them kind of roam around freely. I think they'd feel threatened every second of the time, but if it's a gang that doesn't happen to be black, well, okay, we can go a little lighter on them. But here's the worst case of this, in my opinion, from today. The Washington Post is reporting that the terrorist, Dylan Roof, of course, he's the person who killed 9 black people in Charleston because they were black. He's a Confederate sympathizer, an apartheid sympathizer. He loved the racist state of Rhodesia. He wanted to start a race war. This guy who killed 9 people, we know he killed 9 people, okay? He was treated to Burger King by officers when he was hungry. So they explain in the article how, he got pretty far away. He got like over 200 miles away after he did the shooting. He was caught at like a traffic stop or something. So they send him back. They say, well, on the way back, one of the things they did, he was hungry, so they got him like a bottle of water or a soda or something and some chips. Okay, well, what are you gonna do? They're on the way back to the thing. He was hungry. Well, obviously you got to feed him. But then when he was sitting down giving the interview, and he was, according to the article, very calmly discussing like, no, I had to kill them because the blacks are taking over. Very calmly describing all this stuff and just the most ridiculous, over-the-top, white supremacist, terrorist, garbage, brainwashed nonsense you've ever heard, admitting all this stuff to the cops. During that, he says, I'm hungry. And the cops go and get him some Burger King and bring it back to him. There's also the picture that's going around the internet when he was originally arrested or when they're bringing him to the station from somewhere else after they had caught him. The cops are bringing him. He's wearing a bulletproof vest. They put a bulletproof vest on him as they casually escort him to the police department. Now again, so is my point here that, well, these are all bad people that are involved. Like all the police officers are just bad people. Like there's something worse about them than anybody else in America and any other police department in America. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the assumptions come out when the shit hits the fan. When it's a black person who's not even violent, but they think maybe on some level they may be violent. We don't know. We must take, don't take any risk whatsoever. Kill them immediately if anything is suspicious. When it's a black person, they're so quick to, treat them in the worst imaginable ways. When it's a white person, the idea is, come on now, everybody. System of justice. Treat them with respect. It hasn't been proven in a court of law yet. Let's go about this in a fair way. Let's be even-handed in our approach. They're still a human being, even though they committed a terrible crime. Let's forgive. We should forgive. The judge in the case said we should forgive Dylan Roof. The judge said it. The judge. Is that how they react when it's the Crips or the Bloods that do a gang shooting or something like that? Do they say, just forgive? Forgive. They're part of a gang, but they're misunderstood. Forgive. Do they say that about jihadists? No, I don't think they do. So it's the subconscious biases coming to the surface. When it's a white kid who does a gruesome terrorist attack, you put a bulletproof vest on him to escort him from point A to point B. You get him some Burger King when he's hungry. And you treat him, in all seriousness, like a prisoner should be treated. I'm not saying you should treat him like you treated all the black people in these stories, because the way you treated the black people was abuse. But what I am saying is treat the black people in the same way you treated him, like they're human beings. It's funny how when a white person commits a worse crime, he gets treated humanely. When a black person commits sometimes no crime whatsoever, when they're the victim, they get treated worse. Again, subconscious bias. Now it's visible for everybody to see.